The first time we meet Silverhands, we literally play as the character. Going through a seemingly distant memory, the order of events goes as follows. We finish his final concert, out of nowhere obtain a nuclear device. We hop on a helicopter, seemingly with ease, fly above and assault HQ of one of the most powerful corporations in the world. At first, I was like, heck yeah, go Keanu Reeves. But with the context of CDPR's quote-unquote realism in the writing, everything about this just feels absurd. Everything seems too easy, like anybody can just rush in the most protected building in the world. Which, by the way, has levels of security even more so than the White House itself. Like any gonk can just pull out a nuclear bomb out of their pockets. The Arasaka interrogator was onto something. Where did Johnny get
fissile material?
Something fictional, I'm breaking something beautiful. Afraid of something fictional, mystical, mythical, super fucking natural.
I brushed it off because maybe Johnny was just a badass. He also had a crew of legendary mercs right behind him after all. Spider Murphy, Rogue, etc. He's a Night City legend. Of course he pulled it off. The news and the common merc also seem to idolize him for taking a shot at Arasaka. He really must be an actual badass. Well, suspicions only arise when Alt Cunningham, his now AI girlfriend, completely contradicts Johnny's POV of how Alt herself died.
Your death wasn't Johnny's fault.
How could you know?
Seen you in his memories. It was an accident.
What you saw was his subjective view of what happened. Warped account of events he locked away in his subconscious and replayed time and again. It bears no resemblance to the truth.
This helps us read Johnny's character in multiple ways not possible before. This man straight up lied, and I can go on a tangent about this for an entire hour, but for now, I digress. No matter how we interpret these events, nevertheless, this was all kind of suspicious of Johnny. Though, for the most parts, in-game, this is really where the substantial suspicions really end. But, oh well, surprise, surprise, I'm here to tell you that all of this was nothing but just the tip of the iceberg. Cyberpunk Red, a tabletop RPG and very much canon to CDPR's 2077 game, reveals a whole other side to the events that unfolded in the fictional 2023 bombings. Older sourcebooks do exist, a la Firestorm, but Red adds more context through different perspectives and deliberately retcons some events, such as the Arasaka safety nuke never actually going off, or the importance of Johnny being exponentially less so. The gamebook reveals that almost none of Johnny's memories were actually true to its nature, that Johnny was pretty much tiptoeing the implications of his presence at Arasaka Tower, that the media in the murks of Night City only really know half-truths, and as you'll soon realize, the clear signs of admiration Johnny has for the character of Morgan Blackhand. Johnny presents himself the one who led the assault at Arasaka Tower. However, the book tells us otherwise, that Morgan Blackhand, in the employ of Militech, was the one who actually took charge. The assault didn't just consist of a handful of mercs. In fact, this operation consisted of 3 separate crews, each with their own key parts to pull off. Johnny, along with Rogue, Spider, etc., were only parts of one of the crews, whose mere objective was to be a distraction, while the other teams pulled off the actual mission. In the flashbacks, Johnny's point of view made it seem like they were the dream team taking on Arasaka by their lonesome.
What did you do?
Got my hands on 2 thermonuclear charges.
And headed back to Arasaka.
As I mentioned, Cyberpunk Red deliberately retcons some of the stuff from older sourcebooks. All in all, a new canon that actually makes sense alongside with the game. This time around, there was only one nuke that actually exploded. The nuke that Morgan Blackhand dropped off. This means that Johnny's memories was, again, completely inaccurate. He never had a bomb of that caliber to begin with. At best, he probably did have an explosive, but one only worthy of being a distraction, so then Morgan can finish the job. Notice how when Johnny was pulled out of the building, there was an explosion, a pretty substantial one, but nothing nuclear. That wouldn't make sense. They'd all be dead being that close. And only later does the nuclear mushroom cloud show up by the time Johnny is way over yonder.
You know what? Seems to me you need to have a nemesis at all times.
Johnny has also implied this rivalry between him and Adam Smasher, while the book tells us that in reality, Adam almost thinks nothing of Silverhand at all. His actual rivalry was between Morgan Blackhand. And again, this is just another thing Johnny takes complete credit for. Smasher takes out Johnny with a single shot, while the rest hightails it out of there. Smasher and Blackhand will then have their showdown in the rooftop, while Silverhand never made it to said rooftop at all, meaning this flashback of Johnny getting cornered was probably when he was actually defeated. This rooftop scene was a complete fake Johnny's subconscious probably made up. This is also reinforced in one of the trailers for the game. Here again, Adam takes out Johnny with a single shot and tells him this time, and I quote, "This is beyond you," as if he is looking down on Johnny. Again, there was no rivalry whatsoever. After all of this, one question still remained. You might be wondering why the common merc or media seem to portray Johnny as the main culprit for the Arasaka bombings. Though a terrorist, he is almost celebrated for taking a stand against Arasaka. And well, it's simply due to the fact that he's the only one who's actually caught. Even till this day, Blackhand and most of the crew involved were never actually quote-unquote snipped out by Arasaka. Sure, Rogue ends up pretty much working with them, but they had to find someone to blame somehow. Someone to set as an example for trying to defy Arasaka. And who better to put in the front page than the rocker boy, who was very vocal about digressing them in the first place. Also, Militech themselves would probably see it better to keep a lower profile. Having this rocker boy taking all the heat would de-escalate tensions. From Arasaka's perspective, putting any culprits at the center of it all, being unpunished, may it be Militech or the other mercenaries, will just make them look weaker. Coming back to the alt Cunningham Flashbacks, this was actually more accurate than the rest. Well, until the very end. You see, Alt was actually a very capable runner. She's neutralized her captors even before Johnny barges in. The explosions Johnny causes and him just yanking the jack out of Alt's head resulted on Alt not being able to come back to her body in time. Alt was right. Johnny murdered Alt, not Arasaka. The revelations from Alt to Johnny and the fact that he has nothing to say helps us understand some parts to Silverhand's thinking. Either A, Johnny is ashamed of what he's done. He is protecting his own ego from feelings of inadequacy or failure. The fact that his own bum ass killed his girlfriend. Or B, maybe this is his way of coping, misattributing their own role in the event to keep it all together, which by the way is completely normal and actually very human of Johnny.
Maybe it's not too late for me to apologize.
In the flashbacks, out of frustration, Johnny beats up Thompson. In actuality, he doesn't lay a single finger whatsoever. My guess is as good as yours on why he would lie about this. Maybe at the time he was in shock, ending up doing completely nothing, and only later when he processes the information, especially being inside Mikoshi for that long, he makes up some sort of irrational response to cope up with this heartbreak. And really, this entire thing is a heartbreak. He tells V that after the alt incident, he never works with Thompson ever again. But even just in the game flashbacks, we clearly see him in the comms later on, so that's pretty much a lie. Also, Johnny's memories portray him already having beef with Arasaka even before Alt was kidnapped. That's Arasaka snatched Alt to get to Johnny, while the book tells us that this paranoia never actually started until the Alt incident. The game also supports this by telling us that yes, Alt was kidnapped because she's a very talented netrunner. The man was clearly mentally damaged, hence he joined the Militech operation in the first place. But nevertheless, this was also a good display of narcissism from the rocker boy. That's everything centered around him. Also, even if true, Arasaka could have taken him out anytime they wanted to, especially because locations of their concerts are very much open to the public. But in the end of the day, this was nothing but just a little sprinkle on the cake, because Johnny is kind of a liar.
Worst things when they switch up your identity, and you never even know you've become someone else.
Again, so many questions about the biochip's integrity still remain. So much gray area that leaves Johnny's behavior up to interpretation. Maybe all that time spent in Mikoshi has warped his memories. Maybe the biochip isn't all that cutting edge at all. That one's memory could be messed up the moment it's conceived into the chip. Or maybe Arasaka altered his memories. Or even worse, made him relive tragic scenarios in his life over and over again until Johnny just completely breaks. And he ends up making up his own reality. Nevertheless, all of the characters that personally knew Johnny suggest that the man had actual narcissistic tendencies, a bad dose of quote-unquote main character syndrome, if you will, suggesting that maybe the chip does work, maybe a little too well, especially at capturing Johnny's personality. But essentially, if TLDR, Johnny attributed himself like he was Morgan Blackhand, which he completely omits from his version of the events, practically takes all the credit. The tower incident is completely inaccurate. He made it seem like it was just him and a handful of buddies. He never had a nuke at all. His impulsive tendencies killed Alt and knowingly omits this from his explanations. Even when Alt confronts him with this, he doesn't have anything to say. Johnny has essentially taken credit for being the quote-unquote rival of Smasher, the legend who stood against Arasaka, when in reality most of the credit really belongs to Blackhand. So yes, Johnny Silverhand is kind of a fraud.